I usually like to preach on the other side of the coin. God is like a crystal with many different facets, and many of the theme of the messages that I share are typically on the love of God and the grace of God. And something recently happened to me here in the last week where I have a tremendous burden to touch on the other side of that coin tonight and just realize every message is imbalanced in of itself, that we're to preach the whole counsel of God. And this message I share to me, to the young people, and to all here. I want to give kind of a allegory, and the implications will be obvious. I want to talk a little bit tonight about the story of the Titanic. Many people know of it through books and movies. And I want us to just kind of meditate on that story for a little bit. Just think of this boat docked at the original place where it launched off, and all the excitement, all the people boarding it, all the different passengers. This boat launches off into the ocean. Many people excited, moving to another country. Many people having real high anticipation for a vacation. Many different type of people on that boat. Rich people that were focused on making money and having more power. A lot of people that were into the party lifestyle even of that day. Those that were seeking for pleasure and drunkenness. Those that were seeking for pleasure and sex outside of marriage, adultery, fornication. Those that were poor and having to work in the bottom deck just to exist. And many people that visited, maybe even visited the chapel on the Titanic days before it sunk into the ocean. Maybe when they visited the chapel, they didn't sense the presence of God there. They thought it was boring. And they left saying, if that's Christianity, I don't want it. Some of the other people that were on the Titanic were very religious, had very strong convictions about outward rules and regulations, and they felt that they were devoted to God. And even the last few days of that trip, they went to chapel every day, singing songs. Many of these different types of people were on board of that cruise. But think about this: how many of them would have gotten on that cruise if they knew that it was going to sink into the ocean a few days later?
No.
While on board for the few days that they traveled, supposing after the first day they launched off, somebody said this ship is going to go down in 3 days. If they had known that beforehand, that they had 3 days to live, how would they have lived the last 3 days of their life? See, the fact of the matter is that many of us do not like to think about death. We are forced to think about it from time to time when we go to a funeral. But as soon as the funeral's over, we want to turn our cell phones back on, turn the radio back on, and get back to the busyness of life because we don't like to think about death. But the statistics are out there. 10 out of 10 die. No one gets out alive. Every one of us here someday is going to die. And once that ship hit that iceberg, it had 2 hours before it was in the bottom of the ocean. Many decisions had to be made the first hour or so before it was really manifest that it was going to go into the ocean. Many people did not want to believe that it was actually going to sink. So they continued to party, and they continued to dance, and they continued to do what they were doing. Some of them kind of realized that it was going to sink, and they were kind of stressed out about it. So to deal with the stress and the worry, they went and got drunk and continued to do all the different Novocaine things that we do to try not to think about reality. But some of the people on that ship actually made the decision to get on a lifeboat. See, initially it was a decision to get on the lifeboat by faith, based upon somebody saying that the boat was going to go down. Many people are saying it's not going to go down. Some people are saying it is going to go down. And so by getting on the lifeboat, you're believing what that person is saying. And in order to get on that lifeboat, you had to let go of all your possessions. You had to leave your luggage there. You couldn't bring your luggage onto the lifeboat. You couldn't bring all your clothes onto the lifeboat. So you were forsaking everything that you had to get on that lifeboat. And many people didn't want to. They didn't believe it, so they stayed and continued to pretend that nothing was going to happen. In the same way, today, we see that this world is the Titanic, and it's going down. It's a cruise to hell. And there's many different types of people in this world. There's many different types of people here tonight. There's rich people and poor people. There's religious people and people that don't want anything to do with religion. And there's people that are here maybe because they're forced to be here. And there's young people and old people. And the decision that we are faced with every day is, do I stay on the Titanic or do I get on the lifeboat? I want you to imagine this in your mind. You're on the Titanic. It's at night. There's people partying. They're having fun. There's the comforts of this luxury cruise line. And there's food and there's warmth and all this beautiful lights. And it's just a beautiful boat. And there's this homely little lifeboat here. And when you get on that boat and you sail out into the ocean, it's going to be rough and it's going to be cold. There's no food there. There's no clothing. There's just this homely boat. And someone is telling you that the boat's going down. You can't see it going down yet. And you're either going to believe that person and get on this boat, this lifeboat, or you're going to continue to stay on the beautiful boat. That is the same thing that I present to you tonight. That this world is the Titanic. It's on its way to hell. And it's beautiful, and there's sin, and it's enjoyable, as the Bible says, for a season. There's beautiful women, and there's cars, and there's pleasure, and there's movies, and there's the glory of sports, and the glory of this world. It's just glorious. And here we are. We're sitting here, and we see it. And then we look at the humility of following Christ. And it doesn't look as glorious. And we have to make a decision. Are we going to turn from this world? Are we going to turn from all that we want, all our hopes, our plans, our will, our love for money, our lust for the flesh, our lust for the eyes, our lust for the pride of life? Are we going to turn from that and get on this lifeboat? Or are we going to continue to do what we want to do? Unfortunately, there's a lot of false lifeboats out there. There's a lot of people claiming, hey, you can get on our lifeboat. On our lifeboat, you can continue to love money. You can continue to love comfort and materialism, love for the world. You can bring your religious baggage into our lifeboat and you'll still be saved. They promise peace, peace, when there is no peace. And this is a great deception. And we need to see tonight that the real lifeboat, Jesus Christ, has a call to discipleship. And it's not, ask me to come into your heart. It's not, say this prayer. Jesus' call to discipleship is, if any man will come after me, he must hate father, mother, wife, children in his own life, or he cannot be my disciple. Except you forsake all, you cannot be my disciple. The rich man comes to him and wants to follow him. And he says, sell everything you have and then come and follow me. The call to Jesus' lifeboat is forsaking all.